So here's the rear axle, obviously sandblasted. A drum's over there, and somebody put their fat foot on that one, and now it's all rusty, so I got to redo it. But anyway, so the vent. This is the axle vent right here. That's all it was. There's a hole in there. I don't like this idea just because I just don't. It's too close to the ground. I think water can get in there way too easy. So I'm gonna cut this off. I'm gonna weld this hole shut, and then sometime, I'm not sure, sometime in the 80s maybe, they changed so that the bolt that holds the brakes down, or the brake hose where it splits off, that was hollow and had a nipple on it, and they put like a hose and they clipped it to the frame rail. And that's what I'm gonna go with. I like that idea. You can get those little nipples at Napa or anywhere real easy. And see, and this was the this is the original axle for it. The vent is slightly better because, you know, water can't just drip right in there. It's got to go uphill. But I'm still not a big fan of it just because. That, and I can't put this on that axle anyway. So the other option is obviously the one I'm going with. So that's the original axle. This axle itself came out of a 76. So it's fine. You know, it's a 9 1/4. I got a sure grip for it. Rebuild kit with Timken bearings, so good stuff. I'm gonna get that welded up, get it painted with POR15, and then take it over to a mechanic so they can put the center section in, get the gears in, get everything set up right, because I don't know how to do that, and I don't want to find out the hard way that I screwed it up. So I'm hopefully gonna go over there and watch and learn, but I'm not gonna do it. Oh, another thing. Since I got the camera going, this is it's crude, but it's a special tool I made. And it is just for, well, the 9 1/4, 8 3/8, 8 1/4, 7 1/4 axles. Because the bearing, and not retainers, but I guess holders, aligners, you can kind of see in there. Can you see? Yeah, you can kind of see it. So it's a hex head, and those things screw in back and forth, and that's how you do one of your adjustments. You don't have to put shims in the side. You shim the pinion gear, the pinion bearings, excuse me, but you don't have to shim these. You just adjust and moves the whole carrier left and right. Nice, slick, easy system. I kind of wish they had something like that for the front, but, you know, it is what it is. So, since I had that out laying here, so that little guy popped right off. You see it's a little crusty in there. That's another reason why I'm not a big fan of these, because crap can get in your axle. Granted, that's a pretty small hole, and that actually was a little bigger than it started with. I ran a drill in part of it just to kind of clean it up so I've got good metal to weld to. I'll weld it up, grind it off, and no one will know except me and I guess everybody on the internet who watches this video. There we go. The axle is in, mostly. Obviously, I've got to do brakes yet. A couple things I found out that are different between this housing and like an 80. Because this housing came out of a 75. Parking brake cable. There's two things. Part of the reason, well, I've got this type of axle vent because earlier in the video, I welded this one up somewhere over there. You can't even see anymore. Yeah, can't see. Looks beautiful. So this piece is underneath here, right about like however, something like that. And then parking brake cable clips into there. And that's the one from the passenger side. Comes over and then up the other direction. So that's the parking brake cables in that 75 are completely different routed. They somehow, I forget exactly how they go, but they loop up and then they kind of go through the middle and then up. So there's another difference. There's a tang kind of like this that's supposed to be up over here. So I can do one of two things. I can go cut one off of a different axle and weld it on, figure out where exactly it's supposed to be welded on here, and that way the parking brake cable gets put underneath there, kind of, and that gets tapped over to hold it in place. It runs over the pumpkin, and then it's held on with that guy, oops, over there somewhere. That's option number one. That is a lot of work. considering that it's not a hardcore restoration. So what I'm more leaning towards is I'm not going to use a zip tie. Kinda not use a zip tie. I might use a CV boot clamp. Nice stainless steel. Paint it, strap it on here and pinch her down, probably top actually. Then it's a little less, won't catch on stuff. I think that's probably what I'll do. It kind of depends on how close this rides anyway. If it's close, maybe I won't even worry about it and just let it flop. I probably won't. I'll probably go get one. But when I get the brakes in, then obviously I'll get the parking brake cables in and then we'll know. Otherwise, it's looking really nice. Oh, the other thing I should mention, I don't know why this is. So I added overloads. I don't have the brackets on yet. But for some reason, the arches aren't right. Obviously, there's no weight on this right now. But these shouldn't be touching. There should be a big gap there. And for some reason, I don't know why, they touch. Even like normally they shouldn't. So obviously when I get some weight on, that helps. Hopefully when I get the box on and everything else, that kind of evens it out. For whatever reason, these springs, these leaves really kind of unsprung themselves or oversprung themselves, however you want to pick a term, I don't care. But yeah, so that just looks weird right now. I put some foam in there just so they don't scratch too bad. And when I get it all put together, well then, and to get some weight on it, hopefully everything's good. Worst case scenario, I go find a different set of these, but I don't think I need to. I don't know why I do, because I know these came out of a pickup, and for some reason I didn't take those brackets. I don't know why that is. And maybe these came out of one in a salvage yard or something. I don't know. Anyway, so I just got to get brackets. So I learned something and I changed my mind. So while paint dries on this thing, I welded one of those on for the parking brake cable, which is right there, which will loop across and up to the other side. I've doing some cleaning and I found another set of overloads, and I've looked at them and go, boy, that's got a lot more arc than these other ones do. So, when I put this up there, I can do this one-handed, you can just see there's a lot more arch to this thing, and this one is already kind of pushed up just because of the way it's all bolted in there. And they're both Mopar ones because I could see the marks on the ones that are painted, for that little, adapter piece, that little height raiser. So I know that's where they belong, or that's where they came from, but I don't know what I took these out of. I don't know what I took these out of either. All my other overloads right now that I have on the yard are for 3/4 tons. Finding overloads in a 1/2 ton, factory overloads that is, isn't exactly easy to do. So I don't know what this came out of, but these guys were sitting right next to it. So this is that same type of riser that would go, in there. It's a little bit taller, not a whole lot. So I don't know if those and these match together, but even that I don't know. I don't think this would quite clear either. So I'm not exactly sure what the skinny is with these, but I'm gonna blast and paint these, swap these in there. And I gotta figure out where on earth my brackets are, because there's a bracket that bolts right there, both ends. I've got 2 sets of springs on the yard, but I don't know where any of my brackets are. So wherever these came from, I would have taken the brackets off the frame too. So I'm hoping I find a box somewhere, squirreled away with a bunch of them brackets. Otherwise, I got to go run around the junkyard and start taking brackets off, which is doable. But if I have these, I should have those brackets somewhere. All right, so I'm working on rear brakes, obviously, you can see. A couple little things that I like to do that aids in the long-term stability of all this stuff. Other than just new hardware, like the attaching hardware, the adjusters, usually those things are pretty cheap. These plunger rods, whatever you want to call them, usually they're pretty cheap too. A lot of times these get rusty, so I like to replace them if I can. And the other thing I do, it's honestly, most people have no idea or they don't even think about it, is brake grease. This is obviously Stay Lube. There's a few different companies. So like the adjuster itself, I will grease up the threads, screw them in there, and then this end that just spins in there, I'll grease that up. Wherever the shoes attach or rub against here, like here there's a flat spot, there's usually like 3 spots where they rub. I'll put a little daub on there too. Granted, that stuff will probably disappear eventually, but hopefully it kind of gets worked into the metal a little bit. It's not quite as bad, so that way they move a little more freely. And any other like pivot points where things move a lot. And there's really not a whole lot with rear brakes where there's a lot of pivot points, but I do. And sometimes putting just a little bit of this grease on the end of this when you put it in, because sometimes that rubber is a little sticky. It just doesn't want to slip in there like it should. A little daub there. And then probably one of the more important things you can do, take a picture of the brakes before you take them apart. Or to this particular one, I had one all put together. This is for a different truck, and I took a picture of it specifically so I could print it out and know exactly how to put everything back together. That's for the right side. Obviously, I didn't take a picture of the left one because I just do everything backwards. And that one, even like those little springs, I had brand new. These I don't on this one because they were fine. That one I think they were just straight out missing, so I had to go get new ones. And actually finding new ones of those are just about impossible anyway. But so that way, and then have everything kind of laid out, figure out what you need, what you don't need, and then go from there. So that's just my kind. Oh, this is the other spot where I put grease, where there's a little pivot up there where things kind of move around. But yeah, it's brakes. It's simple, but at the same time, there's important little details that are easy to miss. 2 last things. One I forgot to mention a little bit ago. Color is important with brakes. A lot of times maybe you can't see the original color, but this little spring is color. Well, actually, they're all color coded, but when it comes to left and right, these are colored different. In this case, this is red. The other side is black because they have a left and right hook to them. And this is all part of the self-adjuster, which of course has to be in the right direction, because if it doesn't click, you've got it in the wrong side. So make sure that you get the right color. That way you don't have to like stare at it and figure out why stuff doesn't work right. And then I had these drums turned, and then because I know it's going to be a while before I use them, I did the same thing with the rotors. I spray the inside, the machine surface, with this rust treatment. It kind of turns the metal to a weird purpley color, but it prevents it from rusting any further, so you're not going to have that a bunch of rust when you first start driving it again, especially if it's going to sit for a while like this one will. And then when you start driving it, the brakes, it'll burn this stuff off pretty much instantly, and then your brakes are just normal again. So 2 last things.